Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. This is the first video in my attempts to make a video every day in October. Today's topic is something I've wanted to talk about ever since I saw the news article pop up on Google or wherever it was. I have really wanted to kind of say my piece on this matter. So the title's probably pretty obvious. I want to talk about Naruto, the live action movie that is now in progression. I don't have all the details, but I will relay to you what it is that I do know. So back in July, or the end of July, it was announced that Lionsgate are basically plodding on with making a Naruto movie, and I think they've basically picked out a director or a screenwriter or whoever, and that's pretty much the only real information that they've given out effectively. So it's still in baby stages, it hasn't gone into filming yet or anything like that, so we can't make any judgments yet based on the information we know. However, we can make judgments based on previous attempts at adapting animes into movies and such like. So the reason I think this is going to turn out poorly is for multiple reasons, but the main being down to one distinctive reason, and that is the detail within the Naruto universe. That detail is responsible for everything we know about Naruto, the story development, character history, you name it, that these details are key. So I'm going to go into that a little bit more. So I'm referring to the anime more so than the manga because I don't read a lot, so I don't really read mangas. I do rely on adaptations to convey a story. And anime usually conveys mangas really well. They go hand in hand, respectively. And Naruto has got a total of like 600 and something episodes. I mean, that's a lot. 600 plus episodes. That is mind-blowing. And it's divided into two parts. So the first part of Naruto, it's kind of like the kiddie phase, so to speak. Those first 220 episodes are very much orientated towards, I would say, kids, and I'm talking like 12-year-old boys sort of things, because that's the age that they are in the anime. And yeah, there's levels of violence and things like that, but when you compare it to Shippuden, which is the second part of the anime, which has now got 400 odd episodes, it gets so much deeper, so much darker. If I had to compare it to anything, I suppose Harry Potter is probably the best way to compare it in terms of the way the kids grow up throughout the progression of the books, and the stories get deeper, they become more political, they become far more aggressive and that sort of thing. But we're not talking about Harry Potter, so let's just pop that to one side. So let's talk about the detail of the story. Now, this is where I fear the movie or movies, I don't know if they plan on making more than just one, they are going to miss out so much. I mean, the longest movie I've ever sat through is like 2.5 to 3 hours, and even that isn't going to cover half of the detail that will be needed, even just from the first season. So if you haven't watched Naruto, or if you haven't seen all of Naruto, I'll try not to I'll try not to give away any spoilers, but it might slip out, so I'll just forewarn you. But the first season alone, with Zabuza and Naruto's build up to training, it's just, that's easy. That's a pretty easy flow. That would make a good film on its own, yeah. But that opens up the gateway to the rest of the series. We meet a lot of foundation characters in that first 20 or so episodes. Like any television program, that's how it goes. And as the story continues, we are introduced to more characters, naturally. With those characters, we learn backstory. We learn not just backstory, but we learn how their past actions affect and intertwine with events happening currently within the anime, and how it's going to affect the anime as it continues. we're now in Shippuden, or I mean, the English translation is really far behind, but as far as the Japanese run is concerned, there is so much that has happened. People have died. So many people have died. So many people have not died. So many people have gone on to excel and learn more ninjutsu. And again, I'm trying to keep it really brief just so that I don't ruin too much of the story. But this is the sort of stuff that you just know it's going to fall flat on its face. I'm not trying to dismiss this movie before it's even been made. But like any adaptation, if you miss key plot points, it falls flat on its face and it doesn't make sense. Or if you compromise something, it could very well determine how a character is portrayed and received by an audience. The point that we're in the anime at the moment, people have died. I won't say who, obviously, but depending on how that character is portrayed, affects how you feel when they die, right? If that is fucked up in the movies, then what's the point of it all? Or better yet, do they just not bother having that character in? It wouldn't surprise me. There are some characters that if you removed them from the story completely, it then means there's a lot of story points you can kind of forget about and just stick to one thing, which is fair enough. I totally appreciate and understand having to condense something for the sake of a movie because you have such a short amount of time to tell the story, but it's knowing what plot points and which characters to resolve in order for it to be successful. The other thing that I feel would jeopardize the movie being a success is the age of the characters. So I suppose referring back to Harry Potter again, in the beginning of Naruto, they're all like 11, 12 years of age. And that's fine. That's kind of like starting secondary school over here, which is a relatively normal age. But when you consider the theme of the program and everything, I worry that one, it'll be too cheesy. I'm not saying child actors are bad, because they're not. There are some really talented child actors out in the world. But unless they're casted, then what's the point? If you end up with some whiny, snotty, over-the-top, cheesy acting kid, that's what we're gonna get. And yeah, Naruto's a really over-the-top, exaggerated character, but that's where it can go wrong. The same goes for Sakura. I mean, she's a whiny little bitch in the beginning. In fact, she's whiny throughout the most part of the anime. But it's so easy to make her like a Hermione Granger-esque sort of character that it hurts. Sorry, my tablet made a noise there. And the same goes for Sasuke. He's broody and miserable most of the time. And the problem there being, you'll get some kid who's got a face like a wet weekend all the time. And you're immediately going to not like these kids. Like when you boil their personality down like that and put them into a real person, they're unlikable kids. And then of course you've got other characters who you're supposed to respect and love. Kakashi you're supposed to love right from day one, and I did in the anime, but if he's portrayed wrong, you might be annoying. And of course there'll be fighting, there'll be stunts. If the stunts are executed poorly, it won't be believable. If they rely too much on CG, it won't be believable. And then of course there's the other argument of parents. I'm not condoning or agreeing with this, but you can see it happening. There will be parents who think, oh my goodness, children shouldn't be fighting in such a way. Oh, there's just too much blood. And of course, if they compromise on blood and violence, that fucks up the story too, because again, that's the whole point. People die in this anime. People fight for their lives in this anime. There are some moves that rip people apart, and that has to be kept in. Quite personally, that's what makes the anime. This isn't a happy, fluffy anime like Pokemon. If this movie goes ahead, I want it to be as true to the source material as possible, which is a very fair request. It's no different to a video game adaptation. It's no different to a book adaptation. It's no different to a comic book adaptation. Now, if they can get the comic book adaptations relatively right, I know they've compromised a lot on some of the story points there, but that's studio decisions. And I'm referring to the whole X-Men Marvel thing. But anyway, I'm getting off topic now. So I can appreciate that there are times where it can't be word for word, scene for scene, a copy of its original material, but there are some things that have to be kept in, and I feel a lot of that will just go down the pan. I'm basically worried it's going to turn into that awful Dragon Ball film. I can't even remember what that film was called, it was just so bad. And that is my main worry. So of course, solutions, making the kids older, that probably may or may not work. I mean, the easiest solution would be to start them off at 15, 16, and then when they progress onto Shippuden, skip out the large gap, because there's a 3-year gap between the first part of Naruto and Shippuden, which you probably know, but if you didn't, there you go. Skip the 3 years and reduce it to like 6 months or something. That sounds stupid, that sounds almost impossible, but for the sake of a progression of movies similar to that of the Harry Potter franchise, they'll have to work with it. I think it would make the best sense to have the characters as middle-aged teenagers to start off with. Having them as children may not work. That's just my personal thought. I think the reason I'm getting so frantic with my thoughts is because I've been watching Naruto for 8 years now, and I've grown to really like it. I know there's a lot of anime people out there who aren't so keen on Naruto, and I appreciate that, I get that, but I've come to really like it, and I think a movie, if done poorly, could really just destroy any chance of people going to then see the anime. Or it could go the other way around. People will see the movie, think, oh, this is a bit rubbish, check out the anime just out of curiosity and find how much better it is. I don't know. I can't really think of any other points I wanted to bring up now. Alright, so yeah, casting. Going back to the whole idea of casting. When it comes to kids, and when it comes to lead roles, I always feel unfamiliar faces are always a good idea. I don't, when I go to see a film, I don't go to see it because it has a particularly well-known actor or actress in it. That really doesn't bother me. What I'm more concerned about is how convincing they look. So if it is a character from anime or video games, whatever, if you can look at them and instantly recognise them as that character rather than their real life persona, then I feel like they've done their job. So for me, it could be a whole cast full of people I've never heard of. As long as the movie is executed really well, it doesn't matter. Look at Lord of the Rings. Half of the cast members, when that movie came out, I was only 9 or 10 when Lord of the Rings released, and I didn't recognise or know a single person in that film. Actually, that's a lie. I recognised Elijah Wood from Flipper, and that was it. I didn't know who Ian McKellen was. I didn't know who Kate Blanchett was. I didn't know anyone. I didn't even know who Christopher Lee was at that time, and he'd been around for donkey's years by that point. So my point being that as long as it's someone who is talented and relatively well respected, but at the same time not just being casted because of their name, that's fine. Another worry that I have is cultural, or the keeping true to the culture. So Naruto is of course set in a fictional world, ninja nations and whatnot, but you know, ninja culture is from Japan. That is simple as. It's a very Japanese based history. A lot of the references within the anime are like old Japanese. They refer to like Shinto religious aspects. Some of the costumes are quite blatantly inspired from Asian styles, and I feel that if you try and set that in a Western and I don't mean Western as in cowboys, but I mean Western world. If you try and replicate that in a Western world, it can either come across insulting or just plain bad and not convincing at all. I like Japanese culture, I embrace Asian culture in general, but I do feel that it's risky business when Westerners try and imitate that in a way. I'm not saying I would prefer it to be a Japanese movie and with subtitles or anything like that, but at the same time I do worry that a lot of the aspects that create the Naruto universe and make it so unique will be tarnished. And then of course it's other stupid little things like Sakura's pink hair. It would be, when they made Bulma a brunette in that awful film, I was kind of like, well, where the fuck is her blue hair or turquoise hair? I mean, we live in an age where people have different hair colours every day. How hard would it have been to have given her blue hair? Seriously. Which is another reason why having Sakura older makes more sense, because how many 12-year-olds do you know have pink hair? I'm not saying 12-year-olds can't have pink hair, but in a likely scenario. The other thing I worry would be age certificate or rating, whatever it is you call it. And this was the big worry with a lot of films in the past. Do you make it a 12A so kids can go see it with their parents but not alone? Do you make it a lower rating so that kids can see it regardless? Do you make it a higher rating so you can keep in some of the bad language that is, you know, because yeah, the bastard word is thrown around here and whatnot every now and then. But do you make it higher so you can keep the blood? Because there's a lot of blood, especially as we get further into the series. We're on the 4th Great Ninja War now. And how many Great Wars do you know where there wasn't a lot of blood and guts and whatever? Alright, I'm not saying there's guts, but it does get pretty brutal at some stages. There's not really many other points I can think of off the top of my head now. I think I've exhausted all of my thoughts. But that basically wraps up why I feel a Naruto live action movie is a bad idea. Don't get me wrong, for a long time I did want a Naruto movie, but as I've gotten older, as I've watched more, I've come to understand that maybe it's better left untouched. So let me know what you think. Are you excited about this? Are you not so excited about this? I would love to hear what some of you think about this. Now, before you start talking about any animes you do or do not want to see made into live action movies, hold that thought, because as part of me trying to make videos for every day in October, I am going to talk about some of the animes I would like to see made into movies in the weeks to follow, so keep tuned for those as well. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got any disagreements with me, then of course you're welcome to leave comments below. Subscribe and you'll see more videos come up in the next few weeks. And of course, thank you for watching. Bye.